Before moving to the United States 9 years ago, Tomer was a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces. He has since set up a self-defense school based on Israeli combat techniques.
If it's still projectile, we cannot use it.
Every week he holds a boot camp to teach people from all walks of life how to handle weapons, so they can fight back in case of an attack in a school or in a place of worship. Most of the participants are Jewish and feel threatened after the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. Back in October, 11 people lost their lives after a gunman opened fire inside the temple.
Jews in the U.S. thought for a while that it was different here, that somehow there was an immunity to the potential for violent attack against Jews that we see all around the world. And it's really that there's not.
I think it's time for people to learn how to stand up for themselves, and instead of just hiding, actually trying to do something.
And even in New York, renowned for its cosmopolitan population, anti-Semitic attacks are on the rise. In schools and university campuses, anti-Semitic acts have doubled every year for the past 2 years. At Columbia University, the office of a psychology professor was vandalized in November. Yet the United States is often seen as one of the safer places for the Jewish community, more so than European countries, and Donald Trump as Israel's strongest ally.
I think Jews felt that there was some form of imprint of protection, right, that the president has in his family, Jews. But indeed, that's the paradox, in that because of the increased racism in the public sphere, Jews are in fact feeling, and that was the shock of Pittsburgh, right, unsafe, just like other communities which had assumed that this election would make them more unsafe. Jews never assumed that.
In Pittsburgh, people of all creeds have been living side by side for several decades. In the Jewish neighborhood of Squirrel Hill, locals are still having a difficult time overcoming the recent tragedy. 4 police officers were wounded, in addition to the 11 people who died in the shooting. According to the Anti-Defamation League, Pennsylvania is the 6th state most affected by acts of anti-Semitism, which have almost doubled over the past year. But this doesn't worry the heads of the local police.
I do see occasional people wanting to disseminate certain information about their group, and it tends to be perceived as hate, but I don't see an increase from my point of view. Personally, I don't see what the president, what he tweets or what he speaks about is encouraging hate. Obviously, we wish he would probably tweet a little less sometimes, but I do not think what he is, I don't think he's espousing hate in any way.
But the figures speak for themselves. Hate crime has been on the rise since Donald Trump's election and is often based on ethnicity, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in the country's history. It's Friday, and Jews across the world are celebrating Shabbat. In Reform Judaism, men and women sit together and aren't required to wear a kippah. Many worshippers here hold Trump accountable for the growing divides within the country.
I think the sort of climate he's helped to create and encourage has made it worse.
Before moving to Maryland, Tomer lived in Jerusalem, and he has no doubt that there's a worldwide outbreak of anti-Semitic acts.
America, it's a very safe place to be, relatively to the different parts of the world. Racist terrorism also exists in Afro-American churches been attacked in the past. There is more than just Jewish people in the game here.
While he's never explicitly called for violence, Trump's remarks are being regarded as a contributing factor to the society's divide, a divide that's expressed through the many forms of racism, including anti-Semitism.